Welcome back to DAP Build. And today the aim of the game is to steer this thing back on course. I'm so sorry. So first, if you're new to the channel, I do invite you to like, subscribe, and check the notification bell so you can keep up to date with everything going on. The steering wheel is zip tied in place, and it just gives me an idea as to a rough angle in which I need to set this thing. Way back when, and yep, my voice is going for the morning. Way back when, and I'll show a video here. That's much better. Coffee always seems to help. Way back when, and I'll show a video right here, I had the issue of the alignment of the steering wheel being completely off. And even now, when I've prepped it up like this, it's still at a fair bit of an angle. And obviously it's not mounted correctly or anything like that just yet, so there is that. But I don't think the angle of this plate here is anywhere near correct. I might actually need to kind of bit of a slice into it so I can rake it a bit more. But then again, it also looks like it needs to be adjusted the other way. I'm not really going to know until I start tinkering around. Before I can even do anything with this though, I have to make final measurements on this top piece to ensure that it is actually channel for channel in the right kind of situation so that the angles aren't being pulled one way or the other. When the body was on there, it did kind of glide on and off reasonably easy, so I probably shouldn't be too worried about it, but every little misalignment and adjustment, all that sort of thing, it just makes it more troublesome down the track. So I do want to make sure it's as it should be, not as it became or was constructed to be. I don't know, take that from you will. But yeah, so this needs to be leveled first, and I might need to actually make some spaces to go in between, which is easy. I've got plenty of scrap steel I can do that with. Then once this is sorted, and I know this is 100% set and forget, I can bolt it in place, and then of course make sure that there's no flex or give or anything like that. I still don't have the bolts going into the bottom rail for this area. I don't know if that in itself is going to cause an issue, if it's going to pull a little bit more or less because of that. I think it will, which I'm kind of thinking if I leave the bolts in there, it might be good enough, but I'd really rather have it sorted, but I also can't, so I suppose I could. I'll just have to think that one through and mentally go through that, but I think maybe for that small amount of give, it shouldn't be as big a problem as what the whole thing was. Again, this was, and I've still got a massive gap right now. I've got a huge gap on this side, a large gap on that side. The bolts aren't even done up, but they're at the end of the thread. The heads are actually resting against the metal, so it's definitely not correct. It is definitely out of whack. So once I get that sorted, then I know the position for this, and this is already quite far over to one side. It's favoring one side. Even though the steering wheel isn't a direct line, it is right over to one edge, which is, again, stupid. It hasn't been measured out properly. So either I pull the entire arm to this side and then shimmy on the right hand side. It's not going to make a difference which way I do it, so long as the dimensions on either side are correct in proportion to the uprights and the chassis, which I've got to figure out how I'm going to do that. I need a reference point, so whether I have to do cross measurements or what, I might have to go over this fair bit just to ensure that I do actually get it proper. Apart from that, that'll pretty much be that, because that will probably take me a fair while to sort this out. Then I've got 100%. Then realistically, the chassis, the space frame itself, is realistically done as much as I need at this point in time. More on that at the end of the video, so let's snap to it. Wow, that's got a lot of play in it. Well, it is an old car after all, but I'm sure that there's some slop that could be taken up within that steering box, but that's a little ways down the track. It's all back together. Well, I mean, it's in place, and I do need to get some new bolts for the steering column itself. They are way too short. The original ones that were in there weren't even really suited for the job either. It was more or less a factor of holding them kind of in situ, and yeah, they didn't really do a great job of that. The biggest problem I have now, obviously, is with regards to this steering actual column itself. I think the inner shaft is slightly bent, because when you actually do turn the wheels, and as I'll kind of show you here now, zoomed up, yeah, it really should be making that noise. It's binding on the inside still. A little better compared to way back when, and this car was still assembled with the tub on top, but it's still horrible. The seating position as well, I mean, these aren't the seats I'll be using, and of course this isn't the correct spot as is, because these rails are basically got this resting in place. So I am so close to the steering wheel right here, and my eyesight is just over the top of the steering wheel, which I suppose isn't too bad, but at the same time, I'm way too close to the steering wheel, like literally not that far off at all. So might just do away with that for now. It's kind of impeding. So the sandwich plate now is doing its job quite nicely. I still obviously have to remove that, prep it, etc. and so on. I'm tossing up whether or not I weld that onto the actual upright here, so it's just a factor then of putting this crossbar in. I don't think it really makes a difference, but I might do it just in case. I don't think it's going to be an in case issue, just a because issue. I will need to get some new bolts as well for the end of this. I do also obviously need to rust treat this. This, in case you're wondering, I believe anyway, because it wasn't actually in there in the first place, is just a little recess for the windscreen wiper motor. So it kind of can rest in there, bolted to the fiberglass, but not supported by absolutely anything else because it's literally just fiberglass. So yeah, anyways, does it need to be there? Kind of, because the wiper motor really can't be worked any other way. It would need to be, it'd be hitting this otherwise. So yeah, that will have to stay. Not that I think it's really a massive issue. It's plenty structural at the bottom section here now, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. But yeah, it's a bit of a story. And let's just move position for this one. So yeah, bit of a story. I'll put it this way now. If you're not interested in the story, that's fine, I accept that. Thank you very much for joining me. Yeah, new episode coming up in the future, and I don't know what I'll be doing next. But anyway, I'll see you next time if you're not sticking around, so appreciate it as always, and catch you next time. Otherwise, if you're on here for the short story, I'll try to make it as short as possible. Yeah, I'm more or less in a predicament now of I need to get this car done. Really big, long-winded story, but at the end of the day, my access to this place in the future will most likely not be a case anymore. So I basically need to get this moving. Under its own steam, probably not, but just to a point whereby everything can just be moved in one lump. And obviously that means basically reassembling it. I don't want to simply just slap it back together the way it was, because that wasn't the whole point of this. I wanted to actually get to a point where I could start doing things like I am, more or less rebuilding it in bits and pieces. Slowly getting there, but there is a long stretch ahead. At the end of the day, by the time this video comes out, I'm planning to release it tomorrow. So what's that? 28th. So yeah, 28th. So we're in April now. So more or less, let's say May. So May, June, July, August, September. I basically got from the beginning of May now to the very end of September to get this done. Yeah. It might not happen. It might pull through. It might be in, you know, a much better position, you know, come August. But I'm banking on worst case scenario, which of course means that I more or less need to have this ready to go. So I can always take stuff back off, go back to it and redo some other stuff. Like I'm still a long way off from this chassis, but the trouble is now I really need to get a move on because there is so much left to do with everything still. I mean, the chassis is one thing. I could simply go about focusing, getting the chassis 100%, and that way I can simply just slip that back on, move that along with it. That's one option, but that is in no real ability, predicament, situation to be able to move, let alone get it trailered around, because unfortunately what I did to the front end of this thing. So stupid me jumping the gun, but thinking that I knew what the problem was in the first place. So I started tackling this fiberglass tub, realizing once it actually started to do that, that the problem was just much deeper. And of course it did bury all the way down to the very core of this car, which from there it just kept escalating and escalating to the point of, obviously if you've seen it, been watching to this point, or if you're just joining me now, new floor pans, front fixture, steering column back on, fixing a space frame, adding reinforcement bars, just the whole 9 yards basically. And of course I've had to learn things along the way that I didn't have skills for before, welding, all that sort of affair. So it's been a massive undertaking just to get to this point in time. And it's something that I don't really want to rush and, you know, have to undo a heap of stuff or do something and then just accept that I've done it that way and just not go back to it later. I do want to do this right, because at the end of the day I want to build this for my fun, my entertainment, my enjoyment, not just for the videos and all that sort of affair. This build really was for me to enjoy as a car that I probably won't have a proper one of. I'm never going to have a turbo 964 ever. But I'm simply in a situation that I don't really have a choice if the worst situation comes, which is what I'm banking on. So I need to get this back into a form of function that can be, you know, rolling again, like it pretty much is right now, but I still need to fix this front end. I've got a massive zip tie in there at the moment, which I was using on the steering column. I need to sort out the trailing arms at the rear, way back when I discovered that half the bolts aren't even in there, and it's just, they're kind of just hand tight together. Brakes, non-existent obviously. The rears, not as big of a problem. One side has meat on the pads, the other side does not. I wasn't going to stick with drums, but again, at this point in time, I don't have the time or ability really to start investigating, and, well, I've done the investigation, but just going down the route of doing that modification. So I am for now going to stick with the factory brakes. They're an easier replacement in the future if I want to go down that route. I also need to buy new front calipers. The existing ones are on, they're completely seized. I can't reuse those. But the rotors themselves, the rotors are decent, just rusty. So I'm going to keep those, get some new calipers. I've got the brake lines and everything like that now, so I can redo the brakes. That's all job sorted. I need to buy brakes to on a master. And the pedal assembly, which has been a conundrum in itself. I bought a new pedal assembly, which is in this bag here. Well, I say new, it's a secondhand use, but it's still in just as bad a state as mine. And the flange to actually attach it onto the side of the tunnel, it's just as hacked up as my one was. So I still can't even use that. I did want to use different custom pedals anyway. Can't really find a place for them, even though I've seen people with builds on them. No one ever responds to my questions, so whatever, I'll just hunt around or use the existing set. But I've got to figure that one out, otherwise I can't move the car, like drive it. Drive-wise. Engine, transmission, wasn't going to use it, still not really going to long term, but it is in the way. It's just another thing I need to deal with in a situation where I can't move this thing freely by itself. So it needs to go back into the chassis. It does mean, for now, that rigging up a small little jerry can, putting the 12-volt pump to it, I should be able to run the engine. I've just got to sort those drive shafts out because one of them is completely cactus. There's still a bolt trapped in one of the hubs on one side, what remains of the bolt. So I might, with what PSI has been remaining in this engine, use that for now just to move it around. At least I can then drive it onto the trailer, because I couldn't even drive it when I first picked this thing up. It was literally winched on. And then of course the tub, otherwise that is a nightmare itself. It's got massive pieces missing out of it. It's obviously been hacked up by me because I thought I knew what I was doing at the time and really didn't. So yeah, it's I don't know. It's not where I thought I'd be, but times are changing, the economy's not getting any better, and yeah, my time here may come to an end. So I've got a forecast ahead, and you know, I haven't been given the flick, haven't been said I've got to get this wrapped up, but you know, so realistically, yeah, this will need to be back together in 5 months' time. So yeah, that's the trouble is that, for argument's sake, if I'm not here and I can't, you know, have this nice large free facility and access to a forklift, then reassembling all this and then wanting to undo some stuff, like take the body back off, for argument's sake, I'm not really easily going to be able to do that. It lifts off in one piece. It's just something I'm going to have to tackle down the road, but I just, yeah, there's not much more to say. So, yeah, the build will go on, obviously. Presumably for the next 5 months. The last episode probably will get released in October. Otherwise, hopefully, fingers crossed, I get some great news and things go on here like normal. Maybe just for another year, but that gives me another year. So at the end of the day, I'm working to a timeline now. So this is the reality. I don't have the luxury of time with me. I've got to get this done. I've got to get this rolling chassis, engine in there, that on there, rolling around. Even if I don't have the interior back together, even if I don't have seats in there, I need to get this in one piece. So should the day come, it goes onto a trailer, and then I figure out what I do from there. So yeah, fun and games, and that's the latest update. So yeah, thanks for sticking around. If you're stuck around to hear me whinge and whine and rant and all that sort of affair. But yeah, just thought I'd give you guys an update if you're interested. This is pretty much another reason why there's been no other videos. If you've been watching the other videos, or you're here for the other videos kind of wondering as well, not that you're going to watch this otherwise, apparently I'm doing a workout. That's how good my heart rate's going at the moment, just with the amount of anxiety. No, I don't have anxiety. But yeah, I mean, at this point in time, nothing's been done on the Abarth. The interior on the Abarth is actually literally in pieces, because I started doing a job with it. I've got 3 or 4 things that I'm planning to do with that car, and it's just come to a halt because all my spare time is now being sunk into getting this on, you know, in a happening state. I've known about this for a little while now, so I've been kind of pushing towards it. The Mito, actually in the background right now, drove that in. I was planning to actually do the intro video of that today, but I'm so disconnected. It comes back to me every now and then. Just where I'm at now, having to, anyway. So yeah, yeah, more videos will come in the future, mostly of this. If you're looking for the other stuff, unfortunately at this point in time, I've done a bit of stuff on the bug in the background. The Abarth sitting in interiorly that's not even a word, interior disassembled state. Mito haven't done anything with, but driving it obviously. But yeah, so what was me, as always, ranting on as I love to do, etc., and so on. So I'm going to wrap it up there because I'm just going to keep going otherwise. I actually deleted a full 15-minute video of just talking about this before. I don't even know how long this has run for. Anyway, so that's going to do it again today, guys. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, like, subscribe, comment below, etc. This has been Dat Build. Now, get back to your build. Until next time, guys, cheers.